Hello, my name is Jeannie and I'm one of the ministers from Carshalton Beeches Baptist Church. I want to take a few moments to talk to you about a story from John chapter 20. It's a story about someone called Thomas, and he's usually referred to as Doubting Thomas, although I would much prefer that we call him Honest Thomas, for reasons that will become clear. Thomas was also known as the twin, and we don't know whose twin he was, but I really quite like that because I identify with Thomas, especially in this story. So I kind of like to think that I can be a sort of twin to him too. This is not the first time that Thomas has appeared in John's Gospel. In John chapter 11, there's a story that is centred around the death of Lazarus, Jesus' friend. Jesus wants to go to the tomb of Lazarus. In fact, he's going to raise him from the dead, but at this point in the story, nobody knows that. And to go and visit means going further south to Judea, where Jesus could encounter more of the religious authorities who are becoming increasingly opposed to him. So the disciples are afraid. But Thomas's response is, "Let's go with him, that we may also die with him." Now, maybe that's not the most optimistic view of what's going to happen, but I love Thomas's loyalty, that he is determined to go with Jesus no matter what, to go with him right to the end. The next time that we encounter Thomas is John chapter 14. This is the night before Jesus dies, and he's having a really important meal with his disciples. There's a lot of things that he wants to say to them, to explain to them. At this point, he's talking about his Father's house having many rooms, that he's going to prepare a place for them and then he'll come back for them, that they know the way to the Father. And Thomas, I think, expressing what everybody else is thinking at this particular point, says, "Lord, how can we know the way? We don't understand." And Jesus replies with the wonderful saying, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." You see, if Thomas hadn't been honest enough to ask that question, then perhaps we might never have had that wonderful saying of Jesus in response. Now, on that first Easter Sunday, Jesus had appeared to the disciples, all apart from Thomas, who wasn't with them. We don't know why. Maybe it was something quite simple. Maybe he was running errands, perhaps even for the other disciples. I think perhaps so there might have been more to it than that. I wonder if Thomas is simply heartbroken, and so he wants to be alone. His best friend has died. And with the death of Jesus, all of their hopes for the future have died too. When something really terrible happens to us, we can respond in different ways. Sometimes we do just want to be alone. Sometimes we want to be with others to receive comfort from them. In reality, on the grieving journey, at different times, we will probably want to do both those things. So perhaps that's the case with Thomas. Maybe he just really did need to be on his own for a little while. Whatever the reason, Thomas comes back to find some very excited disciples. "Jesus is alive," they're saying to him. "He's alive." Maybe Thomas as well heard the stories of the women who'd been at the tomb and the two disciples who Jesus had walked with on the road to Emmaus. But again and again, that's the way the story expresses it, they keep saying to him, "Jesus is alive, Thomas." But Thomas is a realist. That doesn't happen, does it? Dead people don't come back to life. He can't believe what the others are telling him. It's simply too hard. And so he says to them, "Well, unless I can actually put my hands in his wounds, then I won't believe that Jesus is alive." I really love that Thomas stays with the disciples that whole week. Even though he's not feeling the same as they are, he still stays with them because they're a safe group of people to be with. They accept him as he is. They don't rebuke him or turn him away. We need to be communities that are safe places for people to be, even when they are struggling with faith. We need to be able to companion those who are having a tough time, to accept them and encourage them. Well, what happens next is wonderful, because Jesus gives Thomas a gentle reenactment of what he has missed the week before. The disciples are still in lockdown, they're still behind closed doors, but Jesus comes and appears with them and uses exactly the same words as he did a week before. Peace be with you, gifting them his shalom, his peace, his wholeness. But Thomas surely must have been startled at what happened next, because Jesus uses Thomas's own words from the week before. Come on then, Thomas, place your hands in my wounds. Don't be faithless, believe. Thomas, though, goes a step further. We don't know if he did actually touch Jesus. I think probably seeing was enough. But what he does is to cry out, "My Lord and my God." He goes a step even further than the other disciples, recognizing that Jesus is not just the Messiah, but he's more than that. He's God himself, fully human, but fully God. It's an amazing declaration of faith. Thomas may have struggled to get there, but once he found full faith in Jesus, he was going to go all the way with that. We don't know what happened to Thomas. Rumour has it, a kind of legend, that he went to India and took the gospel there. We really don't know. But we know from this that though his journey to faith may have been difficult, when he got there, he really was fully for Jesus. Jesus had heard Thomas's heart, and he reached out to him. And he does that for us too. He hears what our heart is. Paul was to write some years later in his letter to the Romans that when we don't know what to pray, the Spirit intercedes with wordless groans. Sometimes, and particularly in the kind of time that we're having now, it can be really difficult to know what to pray. But just as Jesus heard Thomas's heart and reached out to him, so he hears our heart as well in times like this. Jesus' next words to Thomas, "Blessed are you because you have seen me. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed," is sometimes heard as a kind of rebuke to Thomas. You didn't believe me, Thomas. Actually, I don't think it is so much that. I think it's for us. It's for us the word that says, "The disciples saw me and they believed, but blessed are you who come later, because you have not seen me and yet you have believed." It's a promise to all those who didn't meet Jesus in person, but who have believed all down through the centuries and reaching even to us. It's a promise that's there for us today. We haven't seen Jesus in the same way as Thomas did, but if we have believed, then there is a particular blessing for us. God honours the fact that we have believed what we have heard. And so let's take that encouragement this week after Easter. Let's recognise that Jesus can come to us too, to breathe us his peace and his blessing. May you receive that this after Easter time, even in these very strange circumstances that we find ourselves in. God bless you.